Alright, man. The office is outside today. I got a couple things I need to get off my chest. What's up? I hope this angle's okay. This might have to be a test real quick. Although I think it'll be fine. Um, yeah. So I'm outside today. I needed to get out of the house. I needed to clear my mind. I needed to I think just get back into it because I realized, like, as I was shooting the last couple of episodes, that I felt like I wasn't. Oh, you know what? I forgot the timer. It's always something with me, right? Damn. You know, it'd be really dope one day if I could have like a little team of people. I'm gonna have to start that one around 14 minutes. Um, Although a lot of the stuff, even just like slight like equipment changes and whatever, will make doing something like this a lot easier. Um, but you know, it is what it is. I think one of the things that I've been thinking about is trying to keep track of, watching back some of these like videos and seeing certain topics that I touch on, but don't necessarily get into. I think to the degree that I want to, like if I've got something on my mind and I'm trying to like explain things as I'm like passing through subjects, sort of like mentally, then mm, that's like a it's just it makes it hard to explain things to the level that I want to be able to explain them. So I think I really need to get better at taking my time, even though it feels like I'm taking a lot of time already to do these. You know what I mean? Each one requires at least like an hour um, of just like sitting down and talking through things. Even though I could realistically do that for a lot longer. I think if I'm also not bringing like water with me, then I'm gonna have a hard time doing it for too like prolonged of a period of time. Um, Starting to get like a little system down for just being able to like watch the time, um, you know, maintain things like that. I've been thinking about some really heavy things. I've been thinking about some really heavy things recently. And one of the things came up. It sucks because it's like, the goal is to not. Actually, I probably should even just talk about. I should talk about the idea of even talking about. Like, it's about to get meta. You know what I mean? Um, I don't like the idea that there are certain topics that I can't touch on or don't feel comfortable touching on unless I feel like I'm coming down clearly um, on like a side of the political spectrum. And that's really hard for me because one of the things that I was thinking about today was that if I just go online and I see how much um, hatred everybody has for one another, then it's hard to necessarily um, divorce that from the things that I just see people like arguing about. It's hard, you know what I mean? Because like I think one of the themes that I've been exploring, even with you guys, kind of openly, is like, you know, it's actually not always about what you say, but it's about how you say it. And I don't think that just because. I mean, I think those things especially apply when you feel like you're right, or at least I can talk about myself. I especially think that those things apply when I feel like I'm like in the right and I have the obvious right answer and stuff like that. It's like, well, if I'm if the goal is truly to help people and make their lives better, then that also means not assaulting their emotions, insulting their intelligence, um, or doing damage in a way that says, like, there are other people that I care about more than you. So I will hurt you to get to you know what I mean? Like, hurting you is really a means to the end of, like, helping a certain designated target. And I really don't like that mentality and I feel like I've been watching it for a long time, and I feel like I've had moments where I was a part of it for a long time, and it's really hard to work on because, we obviously are living through a time of, I would say, I would probably, I think political turmoil isn't um, a term that anybody would like really disagree with. I think people would start to get iffy on, if I started saying like the reasons that I think why, or, but the reality is that I just feel like, especially, it's funny because one of the main episode where I was trying to get into talking about sort of like recapping like the experience of like my baptism, was the episode that I let the camera run for a really long time, or I let like I was talking for a really long time without the camera recording, which was really unfortunate because I really wanted to revisit um, some of the things that I feel like I've begun to learn and see really clearly, even since right around the time of my baptism, and then even in the weeks sort of like following, like started to notice pretty clearly. And this is one of the things that I actually might switch the phones. I brought an old phone with me to be the timer, and I put mine up because I was like, I want to put it on airplane mode. I don't want anybody to distract me. But I actually want to pull something up out of the Bible, or a few different things that are up out of the Bible. But I can really quote pretty accurately because it's been on my mind a lot, right? And I understand that people, because this is going to touch on a few different topics that are really, I think, kind of fundamental to the way that our culture operates against itself from within. And that's not something that I really take lightly. So I want to make sure that I'm identifying certain like ideas and things pretty accurately. Although this thing is really more of like a spiritual, emotional fundamental, that I think applies to a lot of different things. Um, and one of the great things that I have noticed about the gospel in particular, because I used to really just read like the Old Testament of the Bible, like not for like fun, but I thought it was important to read because I'm like, it's like the oldest piece of human literature. You know what I mean? Literature known to mankind. So it's like, it can't purely be that for political, as a result of like political leveraging, right? Like there has to be some type of like fundamental truth within it. And like there are a lot of things that are in there that are very clearly like a part of the earliest efforts to be able to document the human experience on a spiritual, like a physical, spiritual, and emotional level. Um, and just like a really concrete example. But I think it took me a long time, at least like till around my baptism, to start to understand why the story of Jesus Christ is so significant. Because a lot of the things that he talked about in his teachings were, fell in like the category of, I guess what I would refer to as anti-legalism. And if anybody is watching this and is familiar with the concept of legalism in, at least when it comes to like belief systems or religions, or you know what I mean, things like that, of like, well, there are these things laid out, and if you don't do exactly what this says right here, then like you're bad. And if you read the gospel that in many, many ways, like, Jesus was firmly against the part of the human spirit, right, that moved people to judging other people or harming them or discounting them or disqualifying them because of things, so to speak, like in the law, so to speak. And he's referring to like the Mosaic law, but I do feel like there are certain things that also apply to just like legal, you know what I mean? Civic law, as we would probably understand it. And as I started to like understand sort of where he was coming from, because at the end of the day, what he's doing is he's explaining to the Pharisees, which are essentially like the heads of the church at the time, right? Who also held like a ton of power and sway with the actual like government of Rome and the relevant, you know what I mean, areas that the whole point, the whole journey, the whole experience is all about learning to love people. And it's very interesting that people have found so many justifications to not do that. And definitely like seeing, you know, why a lot of these teachings have fallen by the wayside is another thing that I kind of wanted to get into. And I actually don't know if I can like fully dive like the way, because these are like heavy things and they might actually take like a few different attempts to be able to unpack them in the way that I feel like they deserve to be unpacked. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about was definitely the misuse of martyrdom. And why religious beliefs, I think as a whole in America, get a bad rap because much in the way that, sorry, I know I just made that face, but like a thought just punched me like across the mental plane, and like, I think much in the way that like Christianity was used to justify people doing horrible things to one another. I think that that's one of like the most fundamental misuses of martyrdom, right? Of like, you're using the guy, like the man who, I read some, I really want to explain this as best as I can. I was reading, I think it was either Acts or Galatians, where Paul is talking about the reason why, like a lot of like the reasoning behind why like Jesus is coming makes it unnecessary for certain things in the law to remain as these like really important like statutes. But what I started to gather from it was like a simplified version of doing everything that the law required, like really like following the law, not breaking the law. Let me reset this thing. I'm gonna turn the brightness up too. That following the letter of the law, or following the law realistically to the letter, right? All of the like the taxes and the, you know, there's so many little things in the story of Jesus Christ about him urging, you know, like his disciples to follow the law of the land so that they wouldn't be persecuted for helping people, like for feeding the hungry, for healing the sick, and renewing people in the spirit. And I think Paul's point was like, you know, following all of that, right? All the prophecies came true, all the laws were followed to the letter, and this resulted in the betrayal and murder of not only an innocent man, but somebody who led his life and the lives of others with nothing but unconditional love and forgiveness and generosity and kindness. And to see like, oh, and so what doing all that gets you, right, is sold out by somebody that's supposed to be your best friend, thrown in jail, beaten, tortured, mocked, humiliated, and killed, ultimately. And then for people following that to almost immediately launch into a, like 1,000 years of perpetuating the same things that man spent his life fighting against is really, really, really unfortunate. But I think it's more of it's obviously, unfortunate's like a very soft, unfortunate is like a generous term, right? But I think that we do a lot of the same things. Like we take up causes of people who are suffering and run in directions with them that those people never asked us to run in. And I've seen a few things, like I can even talk about like some of my time working in like the nonprofit sectors, that like stuff like that is done all the time. I mean, politics is essentially that, right? It's essentially masquerading under like the cause of these people that are suffering or these people that are suffering and saying like, I'm gonna fight your battle and your war for you. And then usually it also seems like we're in like this cycle right now of like everybody's really, really, really unhappy with the way that things have been going. And all that to say that one of the things that I've realized is that following the example of Christ is why his story is so important. And people can debate the historical accuracy of every inch of paper in that book until the day that they die. And you know what? Like, you're free to do that. But you can't tell me that it wouldn't be better for each person in their own heart to realize that they have an opportunity. They have the opportunity to lead a life of kindness and giving and generosity and understanding and forgiveness and all of those things. And like, I just don't, you know what I mean? I don't know what the argument is against that. And the idea that people would try to argue against that is like with I don't know. It's like, that's the thing. It's like, what is the argument against that? You know what I mean? Why is the argument? You know, is that my friend? No, it's not. I got the same car. See, like one of the things about being outside is like I might get confused about what's going on, or like there's a cat right here. He's just chilling. He's real cute too. I think he's. Everybody keeps telling me to adopt a cat. I don't know if I can. Don't look at me the second I say that. That's crazy. But one of the yeah, I think the point that I was making is that it's almost like, I was working at this company called the K.R. Robertson Center for Learning, and I might get in a ton of trouble. Like, I might actually get in legal trouble for saying some of the stuff that I'm about to say, but, you know, I, it is what it is. Like, K.R. Robertson is the name of a little girl who got killed in a church bombing in, I can't remember what city, but it was during the civil rights movement. And the organization does a really bad job of doing things that are really at all in line with what they say her life was about. You know what I mean? Because who am I? Like, I don't know this girl, right? It's like 60 years ago. Um, so I can't imagine. But that's the thing, though, too, is like, I was running an after school program on the west side for a couple of years, and this organization serves a few different schools in the like west southwest area of Chicago, so like little between Little Village and the west side, right? And I was working like all the way out west, like all the way like North Lawndale, you know what I mean? So about as far west as their um, services were. And mind you, this was the only school in their network that was like an all black school, right? All the kids were black, families, teachers, minus a few like recently arrived Venezuelan kids. Um, and the willingness of that organization to leave that school and all of like their after school activities and everything like understaffed and poorly attended and under resourced, like just all of the things compared to what they were willing to do for all those other schools made me realize, I'm like, oh, like people run around using other people's deaths as a disguise for their own lack of morality, right? Because they've never done anything that gives their own name enough weight to say, you know what, I can make the situation better and have like people like trust them with that. And I think that that's very unfortunate. And I can see that a lot of people do that with Jesus Christ too. I don't think that that's a surprise. Like I think the main reason that people, I mean, I said this already, right? Like the main reason that people are weary of religions is because of, and this is the other difficult thing about human beings, is that the worst members of any group automatically make up like 80% of the reputation of that group. And as much as people hate when that's done to them, right, that doesn't necessarily stop them from doing it to other people, like having that perception. And I feel like that's across all the categories too. Like I think that's across professions, races, religions, nationalities, ethnicity. Like I really do. I'm pretty sure that a few, right? Because like there's been like this saying, like my pastor's been saying, is like, you know, planes that land safely don't make the news, and I'm like, that's real, you know, that's real. But all of that to say, you know, seeing a lot of the situations that we're going through right now, um, makes it very apparent that I think we're gonna wind up having like somewhat of like a revolution of, how was that? See, maybe I shouldn't be outside because I got bit by something. Um, but like a revolution of the spirit, like in the sense that people are gonna start to realize that the only real options for them are to be willing to help other people with their own two hands, and not to be um, investing emotionally in all of the political movements, in the, I mean, in the values of like corporations, in the media, in entertainment. Like, oh, these entertainers need to uphold these political beliefs, and it's like that stuff comes back to being about, essentially about spiritual needs. You know what I mean? Like, people need to feel like they are putting their trust and faith into somebody that represents kindness and righteous, you know what I mean, and justice and righteousness and generosity and love, and like all of these very, 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 very real things. You know what I mean? These things are one of the things that this kind of reminds me of like in Interstellar, right? Uh, they start breaking like the boundaries of like the third dimension. They're like, well, what's the fourth dimension? I think the fourth dimension is time. The fifth dimension is gravity. But then, like, in the same way, love transcends time and space in a way that makes it, eternal. Um, and it's really, I feel very, I feel like pain, like watching people go through the things that they're going through. You know what I mean? And experiencing the level of like hatred and vitriol that I feel like people are storing up within themselves because they feel like there's no other way for them to be heard. And that's probably the better indicator of our like a broken culture, right? Than misappropriated funds from, you know, damn. I really gotta turn. Oh, you know what? Damn, this thing just got so dark, didn't it? Okay. Let me see. Reset. That's not too bad, I don't think. I left the filter on. I shouldn't have done that. And there have been some conversations that I've had with friends of mine who are also like Christians, not like Christians, they are Christians, that have, mentioned certain things to me about their political beliefs and what they feel like they should be doing to like motivate people to get involved in politics. And I had to like kind of ask them, right? Like, isn't the point of being a Christian, that you're not necessarily loyal to a political belief system, but a spiritual one, right? And so while people are, people have the right to vote, right? People have the right to align themselves politically with certain ideas, certain ways that they think that like a civic, system should be run. But I think, unfortunately, that the the political system has now become so much about, because people have, I think, come away from feeling like religion, organized religion, spiritual belief, and I don't mean like toying with the idea of astrology, but like really like spiritual principles, right? Which most of them are shared across a lot of the different religions, but Christianity specifically, being probably the most common one in this country, at least for a long time, that in the absence of having something that represented morals, and I'm not saying that, like, I want, to reiterate once again, understanding that the reason for that is because of the hypocrisy of a lot of the people that held that up, and that's unfortunate. But now what's happening is that the political system has, like, the need for moral, for righteous moral representation has moved into the political system as opposed to the religious. And I just don't know. I don't really know. It's like one of those things you have to be like, hey, honestly, you know, like I've been online all day. I saw this guy, he like remade Princess Mononoke in like these AI generated like live action sequences. He remade the trailer for Princess Mononoke, which, if you haven't seen it, it's a fantastic animated film. The guy who made it is come out as definitely being like against the use of AI, but you can kind of clearly read, like when you read this guy's tweet about him making this thing, he's really more fascinated with the toy that is AI, like, you know what I mean, as opposed to being like, this is what art should be, you know what I mean? But to see like the amount of people being like, you're a fraud, you're a piece of shit, you should fucking kill yourself. Like the number of people that were just so ready to like go and say something like that to somebody who was not, you know what I mean, doing anything other than like sharing, like, hey, look, I've used this toy to remake a piece of my favorite thing, and people basically telling this guy to go kill himself. Like that's like the type of relational culture that we're like fostering right now. And mind you, that's like not a like this is outside, and now it's gotten to the point, it's like, oh, this is like the attitude that's being fostered within the political system, and it's starting to spread to just everyday interactions with other people. And I think part of it is because of the internet, but I don't know, like I don't know. So I'm saying all that to say that my realization in the aftermath of my baptism is essentially, yes, like the importance of Jesus Christ as on so many different levels, right? As a historical figure, as a moral figure, as an example, as a role model, as, an epitome of love and kindness. Not, oh, you need to, like, you know what I mean? Because, and one of this is the tough part too, right? Is that people don't read, right? People just regurgitate things that they've like heard other people say. And that's why most Christians regurgitate the same 5 lines out of the Bible every day. You know what I mean? Like John 3:16, John 3:16, John, like, can we stop with the John 3:16, please? Like, I understand, but it's not enough to illustrate the importance of what is in the text. You know, and this is what I was making that video about, right, when I was talking about being able to reach people who are outside of like an established belief system. Unfortunately, a lot of people within the belief system of Christianity don't even understand the things that they're reading. Like, I have somebody who's texting me right now every morning. I don't even have this number saved, but it's texting me paragraphs of like, you know, we're having like these like text message Bible studies basically, and like the level of investment in dogmatic belief versus nuanced understanding of the text and teaching is actually like blowing my mind. And I'm like I'm kind of nervous to even like ask, especially now that I'm making this, right? I'm like nervous to ask who this is because I have a feeling I'm going to look at them totally different, whoever it is. Because obviously they got my number somehow, and it could just be somebody who changed their number. I don't really know. But the point is to essentially say, like, you know, these things are important other than just trying to... Oh, it's the police. Uh-oh. I wonder if I'm doing something illegal by filming this video here. But I'm sure they're about to let me know, unless they're going into the alley. Well, it's starting to get dark. I might have to move this around, but honestly, this is more of like an auditory thing anyway. I'm getting a phone call. Ugh. I really want to elaborate on a lot of these points with scripture. And so I think I'm going to try and include some of those things. But a lot of what I was talking about essentially is like, you know, reading, you know, Galatians, I think is a great book in the Bible to read about, you know, somebody essentially explaining to a group of people, like, listen, like like you didn't, you know, in the context of the text, right? Paul is talking about circumcision. He's like, okay, well, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Whether you're circumcised by like the ritual of the law or not, it's kind of irrelevant if whatever faith that you have is not expressing itself as love to one another. If you are not being loving and kind to one another, then it doesn't matter what you're following. It's like, it can't be right. It cannot be right. And you know, it's surprising to me that things like that are frequently left out of the teachings that people share, even like with their own, you know, even with their own congregations. And yeah, I wonder how dark this video is. I'm gonna see real quick. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. It looks pretty good out here, at least from what I can tell. It might be getting like a little bit darker as we continue, but damn, I really should have. Okay, this is the last time that I'm gonna do this without using the two phone. Uh-oh, somebody's alarm's going off. I wonder if it's I can't tell if it's a car or if it's something else. But yeah, I say all that to say that this is like, yeah, this is kind of like one of the, not kind of, I mean, it is. It's probably the biggest realization that I've been having since I got baptized. And it was something that I could tell was like leading up to that. But seeing, it's unfortunate that not everybody is, I guess, I don't want to say gifted because I gotta sound like arrogant, but like there are a lot of people who believe some of these things like, and some of the things in the Bible, like, very strongly, that are really, really, really not good at communicating them. And it's so unfortunate because I know some people, like, a lot of people have their hearts in the right place, but a lot of people, I think, are mimicking because of maybe their inability to, like, communicate might also be from an inability to understand. And, like, the inability to understand winds up, going back to, like, regurgitating things that are written in a book that they really don't know how to read, you know? Not like from a literacy standpoint, but I think maybe from an emotional standpoint in a lot of ways too, right? Because, to have, like, Jesus essentially call the leaders of the church basically, like, you know, Isaiah was right when he prophesied, when he told the prophecy about you lot of hypocrites. You've forsaken God for your own human traditions. And, like, I'm very happy with the ability. I'm really not against being able to define God as love. You know what I mean? Like, I think God is more than love, but, like, love, I believe, is from God. And I really do genuinely believe when I read the text that, like, the thing that Jesus Christ wanted for everybody was for people to be able to really be as, like, kind and understanding towards one another as possible. And I really hate that people are so caught up in once again, the legalism, the same stuff that he spent, you know what I mean, essentially, like, sacrificed his life to fight against. That the people that believe in him, sometime, maybe even the most, at least, like, the most loudly, right, don't seem to get that he wasn't with that. He didn't like people who were judgmental because of something that was written in a book, right? And I think that's a hard thing for a lot of Christians to grapple with, because and one of the things that makes it so beautiful, though, is that it is always going to come down to a test of character, right? And not necessarily, like, and unfortunately, yeah, not always, like, a super flexible definition of character. Now, like, there is, like, and it's hard to grapple with that. It's like, well, where do you draw the lines? Like, this is where it says, like, this is how you can be a good person, right? But, there's also a lot to say that it's like, yeah, well, you're gonna have to also use some of your ability to, like, understand. Though, I mean, not lean on your own understanding, but you also have to know, like, if you're attaching yourself too much. If you're attaching yourself to an idea so much that it's causing you to hate other people, then you've taken it too far, and you've probably abused it or mutilated it in some way. And I think that that's a really interesting idea that I want to think more about. Because I think I'm done with this particular episode. But I want to thank you guys for showing your support one more time. Definitely have, I saw just in the last month we got 9 hours of view time, which I guess is like, you know, a couple people watched like half of most of the videos, but it's like, it's better than, I didn't really know what to expect, but this is definitely, I'm very grateful. So thank you guys again. And I will see you soon. I'll try and do a better job of putting, like, clips out too, so that you don't have to just come here to get all the juicy stuff. Although I think there is something kind of refreshing about, like, oh, like, let me just go put this on in the background. And I know that it's only on YouTube right now. So the only way to get it with no ads is with YouTube Premium. Which, by the way, if anybody's listening to this and wants YouTube Premium, you should make sure you sign up on your laptop because it's like $6 cheaper on the laptop than it is on the phone. And I don't know how they do that, but they do that. So I just want everybody to know that if you are trying to get this without like ads or trying to, you know what I mean, not necessarily like watch. I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm literally sitting in like a garden down the street from my house. So, the visual, I make it pretty just in case you want to watch, but the real part is like the conversation. So at the end of the day, I'm going to start looking into ways to put all of the audio components of these on places where I guess podcasts can go. And yeah. And I'm also going to try and make a name for the podcast because I had like an idea that was like a comedy idea that was like I would make these funny like they were like advertised like how in Grand Theft Auto they have like when you get in the car and turn on the radio they have like fake satire advertisements. So I've made like a bunch of those, and I had an idea for the podcast to be like Get a Life. That was like the name of the company, right? It was supposed to be Get a Life Radio, and I probably will just do that because, like, at the end of the day, that's really what I'm trying to encourage people to do is, like, please, like, whatever you're doing, even if you're, like, I don't know. I'm going to be honest. Like, my brain's starting to hurt, I think I just talked for, like, almost an hour straight. But the point is, like, yeah. Yeah, everybody should get a life. You know what I mean? Have a life. Go touch some grass. You know what I mean? Hang out with a friend. Make a friend. Help somebody in need. You know what I mean? And, have some fun. Be creative. Do all the things. Seriously, do all the things. Like, life is so short. Like, you never even know. You really never know. So, I'm going to cut this now. I really, yeah. Thanks, guys. I'll catch you. I don't know. I'm checking my watch. Like, maybe in a couple of hours now. Later, though.